Let's talk about some of the specific things you might use in composition, like diagonal lines.
So there are crutches. This photograph I took in a bridge in just outside Mandalay in central Myanmar is about diagonal lines.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shot that I didn't really pre-visualize it. It's serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the photographs that you take that you're really pleased with is just serendipitous events.
Mm-hmm.
You've just got to be there. Anybody could take them if they were there and knew their equipment and knew how everything was going to, and could see in their mind what the end result would be like.
I think that's also a form of pre-visualization, just to know that if you put yourself in that environment, you're going to find it.
So this was shot at dawn. I waited on the bridge, and there are people going to work. This is a commute path.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wait here, I'll get people on bikes coming along, people walking up and down. I've just got to wait for the right person. And as I sat there, my back was, I was facing towards the sunrise, and a woman came past, just one woman in one of these conical hats with a lunch pail, and I sat there and took a photograph of her. Seconds later, a second woman came along, got another shot of the two of them, then a third one came along, and then a fourth one came along. Unbelievable luck.
Yeah.
Unbelievable luck. But I was ready, I was prepared, and I got the shots. This shot wasn't made in a 60th of a second, it was made in half an hour.
Yeah.
But it took that long to get the final shot, and then I knew I'd nailed it.
Right.
And it's one of my most satisfying shots in Myanmar. But it's all about diagonal lines. It's diagonals, which gives it vitality. There's a lot of content in it. Women commuting to work with their lunch pails.
Yeah.
There are a lot of elements in it that make it a very successful photograph for me.
Well, Ansel Adams said, he rephrased, chance favors the prepared photographer.
Yeah.
So you're prepared, he saw Half Dome moonrise on his way to the Irwani, pulled over, and he got it in a minute.
Yeah.
But he was prepared.
Yep, you have to be prepared. And this, I was giving this 100% concentration for half an hour.
Let's talk about symmetry in your photography.
Yeah, symmetry is something I use quite a lot. I like symmetry. My training was in architecture and city planning.
Huh.
So I worked at that for 14 years in England. And I think because of that, symmetry is something that I'm attracted to. Again, in Cuba, a couple of months ago, I was photographing a little boxing gym, a really run-down boxing gym in central Havana. And one of the great things about Cuba is the color. The colors are phenomenal. Everywhere you go, is amazing colors. And so is the case here in this boxing gym, with incredible blues. And with the red of the stands, it just cried out to have a boxer in there taping his hands up with, of all like a primary yellow tape. They've got three primary colors, red, blue and yellow. What more could you want as a photographer? But it's the symmetry that made the shot. I wanted it to be symmetrical.
Yeah.
It just came together for me as a symmetrical photograph. And very often portraits I shoot symmetrically. This portrait of a guy in western Cuba,
Cuban cigar,
smoking a cigar. I wanted the cigar because it's Cuba. I like his hat in the background framing the photograph.
Yeah.
And then I shot it until the smoke was in just the right configuration. It took a lot of frames. Sometimes the smoke went over his face, over his eyes. With this kind of shot, you always have to focus on the eyes because we always have eye contact. Whether it's a painting, a photograph, or in person, we always look at each other's eyes. So if the eyes are soft, it's not going to work.
Right.
Always focus on the eyes. The fact that the tip of the cigar is not sharp is irrelevant. You don't even really notice. But it's a symmetrical photograph. It needed to be symmetrical mainly because of the hat framing the shot. But I use symmetry quite often. Two other elements that come into the composition aspects of photography and they're incredibly important. Two of the most important things that I personally think, one is punctuation in photographs. You can get potentially great photographs that just need that extra little thing to make them sing.
Yeah.
And I call that punctuation. And it can be a very tiny part of the photograph, like the ballet dancer in the ballet school in Havana. Also in Havana, this photograph I took of the classic old cars. You have to shoot that. The colour here was obviously phenomenal.
It is.
Pink walls, green walls, blue car, but it needed punctuation. And and again, it's serendipity. It had all the elements that I wanted to say Cuba, but I needed punctuation. This guy walks by in a red shirt, and that is the punctuation in the shot. It's not a photograph of a person. He's purely symbolic,
yeah,
but it makes the photograph. And that's incredibly important. I do this a lot. Most of my photographs, try to get something in there that will punctuate the image, that makes it more than just an ordinary static shot. Another example of punctuation, again, red, it's a cliche colour to use for it, but it works. And again, a very colourful scene in Trinidad in Cuba, which is an amazingly photogenic town. The colours of the buildings and these blue posts, this cried out for a photograph, but it needed that extra element in there. And a guy walks by in a red shirt and adds the punctuation. The other element that I think is critically important, as important as the punctuation, is gesture. And this can be gesture of a person. Again, the ballet shot with the kid standing in a ballet pose, that's the gesture that is needed. It's a very tiny element of the photograph, but that gesture reads as though he's a ballet dancer.
Right.
In this shot, again taken in Trinidad in Cuba, of this little butcher's shop, which I like the colour, I like the meat hanging up, and there was a dog there, and the dog is both punctuation and gesture. Gesture and punctuation go hand in hand.
Right.
Punctuation is usually a small element of the photograph, but if it's a person or an animal, the gesture has to be readable. And I waited until the dog got in this gesture where it's obviously a dog in silhouette. And I'm always looking for those little movements, and you wait until you get it. And another element that we haven't talked about is viewpoint. You don't always shoot things, we tend to shoot things from eye level all the time. But often, you can get more interesting shots if you change your viewpoint. This photograph in Myanmar of two young monks eating breakfast in the morning, I got by standing on a bench by the table and shooting down. It's far more impressive because of the number of little bowls of food. In this restaurant, everybody gets the same bowls of food, you just help yourself. But the only way I could illustrate this, and you have to think about this when you're shooting, what is the story I'm trying to tell? What is the message I'm trying to get across? And then think how you're going to tell that story. And this is, I guess, from geographic training, to come back to our initial talks about what my style is and how I think about photographs. You're trying to tell a story. All my photographs, I hope, will tell a story, if not in their own right, as part of a group. They will add to a story. So you have to make sure that you get the elements in that photograph that will tell it. And with this, it was the number of little bowls they had, and the only way to get it is by shooting down. So don't always shoot from eye level. Get down on the ground. I carry a little pad with me very often to lie down on the ground and get low angle shots. Yeah. Though the older I guess, the less I'm inclined to do that. I need a crane to get me back on my feet again. But it's important to change your angles and viewpoint.
Absolutely. Okay, Bob, any kind of summary point you'd like to make for our viewers who want to become better at their composition?
To become a good photographer, just immerse yourself, know your equipment, look at other media, look at painting, sculpture, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. But it will affect your vision and inspire you. If you have any other interests, then use those to improve your photography.
Well, actually, it doesn't. Yeah, okay, cool. So I want to thank you guys for. Are we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling. I've been rolling.
Let's do it again. Does that mean we're rolling? Okay. I want to thank you guys for watching, and be sure to subscribe. We want you to like if you like our video, of course. You can comment down here, and also please share these with other people because we want to bring Bob Holmes to as many photographers as we can. And if you would, support us with Patreon. We're funding this whole series ourselves, so your contributions will really help us bring more great content to you guys. And Bob, you have a workshop you'd like to mention.
I've been running international workshops for several years, and you can find information at Lumaria, Lumaria workshops.com. And also, I'm a regular poster on Instagram and give regular photography tips, and my Instagram address is Bob Holmes Photo. So hopefully I'll meet you there too. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys.